The meeting to order at 7:05 and state that the notice of the regular city council meeting was duly posted. We do have a quorum tonight, but we have 3 members missing. We will keep Councilmember Marula's family in our prayers. He has a ill family member, and Councilmember Edwards, she is traveling. But before we get started, I'm going to ask legal to just give us a brief overview of how our process will work with voting tonight, since we do have 3 members missing.
And I'm sorry, I tried to pull up our charter and the computer is like spinning. But our charter requires a unanimous vote for all of our actions tonight because there's only 4 of you here. So
okay,
everything needs
I just
4.
wanted to make sure that was clear because we've had some issues with past meetings when we don't have all our members.
The charter is requiring a unanimous vote for everything.
So what happens if we don't have that?
It'll be the same thing, like the 90-day delay, like when we had another issue that couldn't pass. So you can't reconsider another item for 90 days.
So every single item on the agenda tonight
Correct.
requires 4
votes.
So now we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance by our Chief, Fire Chief Eugene Campbell.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There are no presentations for tonight. We have several people who've signed up for public comments. Maria, were these all for agenda items?
They're all for public comments.
Yeah, but are they for agenda item?
No.
No? Okay. Because they have numbers on here, so I didn't know if...
It's number 4, public comments.
Okay. I will remind everyone you have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address when you come up to the podium. We'll start off with Jeremiah, ASOMUGTHA, I believe. Thank you. Uh-huh.
Thank you so much. My name is Jeremiah Asumuga, and I'm the pastor for the Miracle City Church. My address is 20811 Trenton Valley Lane, Katy, Texas, 77449. Mm-hmm. And tonight, we were supposed to be on the agenda to meet in regards to the church for the rezoning of the church. But on Thursday, I was out of town. We had one of our pastors and his wife who passed away, and they have kids that needed attention. So I had to fly out of town to go and bring those kids to stay with me. So while I was in that place, I received a phone call from one of my pastors stating that she has the city on the phone and that they wanted to talk to me, which I thought it was strange. So I got on the phone, and it was Jamila, the attorney, who was on the phone. So she said that this is in regards to our application, that we are going about it the illegal way and we need to withdraw the application. So I asked her a question. Again, I came in earlier and I spoke to the gentleman, Snipes. I was on the phone with him and I came in earlier. He was so kind to speak with me. So I asked her, I said, are you calling on behalf of the city? She said no, that this is a courtesy call to let me know I'm going about it the illegal way. So I told her, I said, okay, so what do we do? She said we need to withdraw the application and they will tell us which route to go. So I said, okay, this is a strange call. Normally when they communicate with us, it's through an email, which they are very good on, but we haven't seen any email asking us to pull back from the agenda. I said, can you give me time so I can speak to my board of directors? She said, no, I need you to make a decision right now in the next 30 minutes. Now, I'm at home with kids that just lost both parents. I'm not at a position to make a decision. So I said, this is a very strange call. You called me out of the blue and you're telling me to make a decision right now. I said, can you give me at least a day to see what I can do? She said, okay. So I placed the call to my engineer and I told him what was going on, if he could handle it. He said yes. So he asked for the name and I gave him the name and everything. and they both spoke. Now, before we left, she said, if you need to pull the application from the agenda today, I will need you to send me an email. She said, I'll give you an email to send and to write an email and saying you are pulling the agenda. So after we had a long talk, I don't have enough time to go through it. I told her we're not going to pull the agenda. It's okay if we stay on the agenda. And came the engineer called her. They went about the same discussion. And because I told him, I said, please, can you let me know everything you guys discussed? So he said that when they finished on the discussion, he told her, we want to be on the agenda. So I flew home with the kids, assuming we are on the agenda today, only to get a phone call less than 4 hours to the meeting from Jamila.
He's reached his 3-minute limit.
Informing me that we are not on the agenda for today because she did not hear from us. That took me aback because my engineer got a hold of him and he's here to speak for me.
Okay. Did your engineer sign up?
Yes, he did.
What's his name?
He signed up on that. He's supposed to have signed up on that. I don't know if they put his name down.
Yes.
Quimby.
He would have to sign up so he could speak.
Okay.
When do I sign up?
There's an orange form in the back. So we'll move on to the next one. He can come. Just have him fill out the form.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'll let him finish. Thank you.
Thank you.
Christopher Quimby.
Hi there. My name is Christopher Quimby. I live at 11814 South Willowdale Circle in Missouri City, Texas. Born and raised there my whole life. First off, I wanted to say thank you all very much for your public service and for hearing us out tonight. I wanted to speak about the same matter. I wasn't made aware that it would be taken off the agenda. I didn't look at the website this weekend, but I just wanted to express my concern about the project due to. Thank you. I wanted to express my concern about the project due to a couple of issues that were brought forth to me regarding the flood plan. In regards to, it was expressed to me that the flood plan was actually zoned for Fort Bend rather than Harris County when the property lies within Harris County, and that raises a great concern for me because even though we did, I want to say about 2 years ago, we had our roads and drainage systems redone, and actually it was a little bit before Harvey. And we still encountered an issue where when Harvey hit, I went out to the streets into the storm drains with a stick to help get the debris out of there so that the streets could drain and so that the 3 feet of water that was in the middle of the street didn't end up getting into the houses. And so that being my biggest concern is that the idea of trying to put a big structure and eliminating all of that forestry area, all the green area, that would put those houses at risk of potential flooding, and that the idea that it doesn't have an outflow into an existing water source really concerns me for the safety of those families and their belongings. Thank you all very much for your time tonight. I hope you all have a good evening and hope to see you all again soon.
Thank you. J.C. Hyde.
Thank you for letting me speak again. I came to ask a question. I've been requesting public information since 2018, and I get the same response. The city has concluded your request, which no information is responsive. Thank you. The city will now consider your request closed. So I went to my state representative, and there's a video that's been missing or replaced or destroyed, whatever. So I had my state representative's area director, Rosalind Gary, emailed the chief information officer, which is your city secretary, saying, we know the video is missing, but can we get the minutes? We request some minutes. Once again, the city's in receipt of your request information. There's no document response for today's attached. This is a violation of my civil rights, not giving me this information. I've been requesting this information for over 2 years. It's causing me financial harm. It's let people steal property from me, and it's involved one of y'all city employees. Well, as of Thursday, they finally, after I went through this, through Judge Clouser and got the information to the police department, they finally turned it from civil to criminal. So I don't know what I need to do to get my public information because all I get is non-responsive. It says the city has concluded. Who is the city? Is it all of y'all that concluded this? Is it one person? And I've asked to identify the city. I don't get it. I mean, is this, who is the city, and who has concluded my request closed? The city. Can I please get identified? Who is the city?
Thank you. Jordan Jones.
Good evening. My name is Pastor Jordan Jones. I'm a pastor at Inspiration Church. I come on behalf of the Fort Bend Pastors Association. We met with the mayor, and we were speaking about an audit. That was one of the biggest things that we spoke about, and we just wanted to see if the mayor and her constituents agreed on having the audit, or is the audit still something that's in place?
We're not able to respond to you during public comments.
Okay, thank you.
NKE MDI, is it Kadimi?
Good evening. Like Jeremiah said, I am the engineer.
I'm sorry, can you state your full name and address?
My first name is Nkemde, last name Ohalete.
Thank you.
And my address is 14903 Rockville Lane, that's Sugarland 77498. I am the engineer working with Miracle City Church on the application for rezoning for their project location. Last week, when Jeremiah called me about the phone call they received from one attorney from the city regarding the application, stating to them that they need to put the application back because it's illegal. So I expressed my discomfort for that conversation and told him to give me the information of the individual so that I can do a follow-up call, at least to ascertain the fact that the person is actually representing the city or if it is just an anonymous call. He gave me a name by the name Jamel. I called and the lady answered, and then I asked her to identify herself. I identified myself, and she told me she's the city assistant attorney, and they told me that the reason why she called was because the application, the way it was done, is illegal, that we need to pull it. And I asked her, what makes it illegal? Because to my own understanding, we have gone through the first hearing, I believe was from the planning section, and we received a positive recommendation for this application process to be on the city council agenda. And she said, well, what makes it illegal is that even if we go forward with it, and if the council approves it, it will still be illegal because by ordinance, we can only build a 2,000 square foot structure in that place. So I made her to understand that right now we're only going through the phase of securing a rezoning for this particular location so that we can then go through the normal design process. And I let her understand that whatever the code is that requires the building to be designed and structured and constructed at that location, that we are willing and able to comply with the city design codes. But for now, we are going forward with the application. And I also went further to say, for my own edification, can you give me the reference ordinance that you are referring to, if you can send me a copy? She said, okay. So I gave her my email, and she sent me an email with an extract of the zoning ordinance section that stipulates the square footage, and then there's a section B, Cuchara, that has different square footage. So I replied to her, say, please reference section B as well. And got an email back later a few days that says, I do not understand. Could you please explain? I did not respond to that particular last conversation because I've already made my position and the position of my client clear that we are moving forward with this application process. Whatever the outcome is.
Mayor, you've reached his 3-minute time limit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just as a FYI, so everyone's aware, we aren't able to respond when you come up and make public comments, but I assure you that staff will get back with you and if you put your information on the orange sheets.
If I may ask, would that be in writing?
What?
The response.
I'm not sure. They'll get back with you.
Okay. If I may make a request, we would like to have a response in writing, please.
We'll move on to our staff reports, city manager announcements.
Mayor, thank you very much. I hope everyone had a great weekend. Just a few brief operational updates. The city recently launched a real-time travel map that allows our residents to see traffic flows throughout the city as well as to get travel time estimates between destinations. So we encourage everyone to view that map, and they can view it on our city website, which is www.missouricitytx.gov. The bridge on Glen Lakes near Highland Lakes Drive is closed to all traffic for a reconstruction project. The project will take approximately 1 year to complete, and residents are encouraged to allow a few extra minutes when traveling in that particular area. The city has started construction as well on Laquinta Drive at Quail Valley Drive in the southbound lane. I had an opportunity today to drive it on the way to the golf course. So afterwards, the northbound lane will be repaired. The street is not closed entirely, and there is a work zone along the flaggers on site. The duration of this repair would take at least 4 weeks, weather permitting. Staff recently produced a summer safety tips for not only our property but also our pets. To view those tips, we ask that you go to our website again at www.missouricitytx.gov. And lastly, the Fort Bend ISD begins classes on Wednesday, August 14th, so please be aware that school zones will once again be in effect. I would encourage our residents to please go on our website to view upcoming events. Our Parks Department every week and monthly provides a whole host of activities that are engaging all of our demographics throughout our community. We have an Access Health Back to School Health Fair that will be on Saturday, August 10th from 9 a.m. to noon. It will be held at 307 Texas Parkway, Suite 100. There will be free health screenings, haircut vouchers, backpacks, school supplies, public safety activities, and more. Again, that's this Saturday, August 10th from 9 a.m. to noon. Lastly, our MCTX Symposium will be held on Wednesday, August 21st from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. This is really a public input workshop and will be an opportunity for our residents as well as our stakeholders to discuss operations in all departments with city staff. Mayor, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now have the presentation of the certified roll and proposed budget.
Mayor, thank you very much. This will be a joint presentation with Elena Portis, our CFO, myself, and our ACM, Bill Atkinson. One of the things that the presentation outlined really is, as I have conversations with our residents across the city, there are always comparisons about how we shape up with some of our neighboring cities like Sugar Land, Pearland, Stafford. So we're going to talk about, because I think it's a lot of information to share with the residents, because there are some distinct differences in who we are and how we compare to those cities. Provide you with some information about our workforce. The legislation that we talked about earlier, the legislative session really had an impact on local governments throughout the state, and we want to make sure that you're aware of some of that legislation and how it impacts our city. We are fortunate to have our certified rolls for our property taxes that came in for Fort Bend County. In the coming weeks, we will have our certified rolls for Harris County, but right now those rolls are preliminary. One of the things most recently that we've heard a lot about is homestead exemptions, as well as I want to share with you some information on not only that, but tax deferral, fund balance, and bond ratings, as well as the guiding principles that we utilize in preparing this budget for this upcoming year. I guess I went too fast. Yeah. One of the things that we hear a lot is the sales tax rates and why there's a big difference in our 2%. As most of you know, our sales tax, state sales tax is 8.25%. And of that amount, cities receive 2%. What this slide shows is comparing three cities, Sugar Land, Stafford, and Missouri City. Of the 2% for the sales tax portion for city local sales tax, Sugar Land utilizes their sales tax for economic 4B and 4A, which are economic incentives, property tax relief. A lot of people ask the question, how is it that Sugar Land is able to have a lower property tax? Well, their citizens voted and approved the 0.50% to buy down or lower their rate, as well as 1% to go towards their regular rate. So of their 2%, 1.50% goes towards their general fund to support operations. On the other hand, Stafford utilizes 0.50% for economic development, as well as 1.50 for their regular rate. But if you look at it, their general fund portion to support operations like public safety, parks, and public works is 1.50%. Missouri City, on the other hand, our citizens approved that 1% of our 2% would go to support the Metropolitan Transit Authority, Metro, where the other regular rate is 1%. And in our instance, 0.50 comes back to support the city. But right now, when you look at the general fund portion, it's at 1%. One of the things that we wanted to do is to share with council what that means if you look at the sales tax rate. When you look at Sugar Land, and they have the benefit of not only First Colony Mall, but other benefits commercially and from a retail standpoint. 1.50% for sales tax rates for Sugar Land equates to about $40 million for their population, and that's a per capita rate of 338. Stafford, on the other hand, has 1.50% for their sales tax rate that goes towards supporting general fund, and that's $13 million for their sales tax revenue. When you look at Missouri City, although it does not include the 50% of the 1% sales tax that goes to Metro, that sales tax revenue that we utilize is $9.7 million. When you look at the city sales tax plus Metro, and one of the things that we wanted to do is to show a comparison. If we equalize our sales tax at 1%, that would equate for Sugar Land $26.7 million, for Stafford $8.7 million, and for Missouri City $9.7 million. However, when you go and look at what the actual number is for 1.50, this gives you an idea of how much is lost based on the relationship that we have with the Metro. If we're not allocating those dollars to Metro, we would have about $6 million that we could utilize for 4A, 4B, or for other incentives, Homestead, exemptions, et cetera. But in this case, Sugar Land gets about $40 million for their 1.50 sales tax, $13 million for Stafford, and $14 million for Missouri City if we had that extra amount of revenue coming in.
So, Anthony, before you go any
Sure.
further, quick question, or just kind of to put that information out there, what year did we enter Metro, and how did that happen, just really quickly?
Mayor, if my recollection, I don't know the exact, it was about 20 years ago. And I think since its inception, about $150 million rough estimate has been placed towards Metro. But one of the things I always share with folks, we have received benefits, infrastructure benefits since that time. But I think 2025 is the ending date, Bill, is that right? Where that contract will end. But as it relates to, that's the date of the ending of the not
that's
ending,
the
but that's
return
the
of our half cent, right?
Well, it's not automatic. At this point, I'm just saying the current agreement that we have with Metro right now, the current contract ends, but at this point, the process of what happens after 2025, it's not an automatic that we will be out of Metro. It's a process.
Okay, and that was done by ballot, correct?
Yes, it's my understanding over 70% of the residents, or majority of the residents of Missouri City, opted to move to be in Metro.
Years ago, or was it in 78, 79?
It was a long time. It was 20 plus years.
Yeah.
Well, way before my time, Councilman.
30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Even in 2025, that's just the half cent that will end. We don't, the contract that we're in with Metro never ends. It continues to go on. The only way I thought we could get out was legislation to get
That's
us
correct.
out.
That's correct.
Okay, I just want to make that clear because a lot of people are always asking, how is this so? And when does it end? And I'm like, it doesn't end.
Yeah. And as you know, Mayor, there's from a city standpoint, we can't actively have those engaged conversations.
Exactly.
If that happens, it has to be city initiated and not through the city of Missouri City.
Yes, and so FYI, the leadership cannot lead that charge. It would have to be done by the citizens.
Yes.
So, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No problem. Our next slide really just gives you an idea of the property tax revenue. And as you know, based on Missouri City's current tax rate, we bring in about $25.9 million. Of course, Stafford does not have a property tax because a large amount of their revenue, practically most of it, is via the sales tax that they receive. And then Sugar Land is 22.6, and a large amount of why we're higher than them is because their tax rate, as we talked about, that 0.50 has allowed them to have a lower rate, and the capture is less than what ours is. Our next slide really just gives you an idea of the property tax revenue per capita. With Sugar Land, as you see, it's 191. With Missouri City, it's 348. And then sales tax, 338 for Sugar Land, 660 for Stafford, and 131 for Missouri City. But if you pull both of those together, which are the lion's share of revenues for all of those cities, you will see that Missouri City still lags behind the other two cities. One of the things I think is very, very important when we're looking at the general fund FTE per 1,000 population, and this is something that I hear from residents all the time, what are the resources, what are the staffing that's allocated to support the service delivery to our citizens? This is a current depiction of the number of employees per 1,000 residents, and Missouri City is one of the lowest in the entire state as it relates to FTEs per 1,000. One of the previous city managers shared with me long ago is that that just shows how efficient Missouri City is, but for every three of everyone else, we can do it with one person. But as the demand for service, as more demand for doing more occurs, a lot of the folks that we recruit sometimes go to some of our competitors because ultimately they can get, in some instances, feel that they can do less in some instances, with more money in some instances as well. So we're watching that. We're trying to look at what we can do to make sure we continue to be efficient and effective, but also making sure that we're being market competitive related to our compensation and benefits. Next slide. At this time, I'm going to ask Bill Atkinson, if he would, to just give you an update related to the legislative impact. One of the things I've stated, Mayor and Council, is this legislative session really had an impact on our city. And what we want to do is make sure you're aware of some of the financial implications of what that means as we develop this upcoming budget. More importantly, the 3.5 that we've been talking about over the last year, I wouldn't say we got a reprieve, but it won't go into effect to impact the city this year for this development of the budget. But next year, where we've had the benefit through our rollback rate to be at 8% to capture the value and the success of our city, we won't have that benefit next year because that number is going to decrease down to 3.5%. So with all of the challenges, all the demands of service and increased services, we're trying to be mindful and to plan out not only for next year, but in the next 5 years, what that looks like for Missouri City. Bill?
So, Mayor, members of council, as Anthony just pointed out, property tax reform is probably the one that most people are aware of, and the impact, as he pointed out, that it's going to have on cities and some adjustment that we'll have to make going forward and some thought that will have to take place not only for next 2020, FY 2020-21, but further out because it will have an impact going forward, and we'll keep you apprised of that as we continue to move forward. A couple others that were critical to the cities this year, and again, we took it on the chin in quite a few areas. One was for the right-of-way fees. As you know, the utilities, there are fees that are paid that we have for them to utilize ditches and right-of-ways of cities. And so anyway, because of the advent of technology and with now being able to run communications through a single pipe, we'll say, cable and telephone, they now are able to drop the lowest fee that they pay. If they pay both, they drop the lowest fee and they only pay the highest fee, and that will have an impact on the city. At this point in time, we're estimating that that'll be a potential $200,000 difference in revenue that we'll see lost as a result of that. City fees, building permit fees, again, what they came back to was that they may not be they may not be tied back to the value of the building, but they must be a more objective measure. And in this case, and as you've adopted recently, we have now gone to a square footage fee, and you recently did that. And as we saw with the analysis that Otis Briggs did, we're going to not see it, we don't believe, an impact from that. It looks like we'll be recovering about what we were recovering under the value proposition. Then secondly, with building code regulations, and this is one, and again, it'll take effect September 1, and it provides for exceptions that are some exceptions, but that the city cannot regulate building materials or methods beyond what is nationally recognized in building code. We are concerned about this, and it's something that we have had standards here higher than what you would typically see in the national codes, as you know. And so this is going to have an impact on the city of Missouri City. We will potentially we could see some value loss as a result of the value of the buildings or structures. And so we are going to continue to monitor this and the impact on it that it could potentially have in property values. And just wanted to make you aware of that. Development applications, and again, this has to do with the planning approval process, and I think we touched upon it with Jamila and some of the recommendations that are coming forward with reference to that. She covered that with House Bill 3167. In-house training, this is something that is probably overdue, and fortunately we've been doing this or just started doing this even prior to this coming about as a mandate. As you know, utilizing and having access to the city's computers, you too are going to have to take training for cybersecurity. And staff, it's mandated that staff and those that utilize the city's computers have to have that training. You do an online test, and there is an impact fiscally, and that's why we put it in here that we will have to pay an outside firm that helps us with that testing. But it is critical. It is probably well needed. And so, again, anybody that utilizes our computers 25% of the time or more, then that is they're affected by that, and they must do that. And then finally, something that we've been looking at and ties back to something you recently approved with a contract with Noresco, was to take a look at electricity consumption and trying to reduce electricity consumption. This has been something that's been in place for many years, but is again stepped up this year with Senate Bill 241, excuse me. And as you know, we've got this process that's being undertaken now by Noresco and having worked with staff, identifying opportunities for us to do energy reduction and savings to the city. That work is underway, and we will start reaping the benefits of that going forward, but now mandated by the state. And those are just a few of the items that have affected cities in the recent legislative session, and we'll continue to keep you apprised of those as we move forward.
Before we get too much further for the property tax reform, do we have an estimate yet of the fiscal impact? I know it won't take place for this upcoming fiscal year, it's the next fiscal year, but can we get some numbers, even if they're estimates, to see what we're going to be dealing with?
Yeah, Mayor, we're working on that now. As I stated earlier, all of the certified rolls are not in with Harris County. So in my proposed budget that you'll be receiving at the next meeting, we'll have that information for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to have Elena Portis, our CFO. Mayor, as I stated, we've received the certified rolls from Fort Bend County. We're awaiting the Harris County certified rolls, and there's a process, but we wanted to share with you what we've received to date and some of the preliminary estimates that we're making.
Have they given us an estimate when they're going to get it together, Harris County?
Well, with Harris County, we always receive those late. I wouldn't say late, but based on their timing. We always have, by the second or third week of July, Fort Bend County's numbers. So what we try to do is to look at the previous years to make some best guesstimates. But as Elena will share with you, sometimes based on things being in ARB reviews, that number can go up or down depending on where it is. Elena.
Okay, so we do have the certified rolls for Fort Bend County, but I would like to provide you with the preliminary information so that you can see the difference between preliminary and certified. So the preliminary assessed value for Fort Bend County was approximately $7.3 billion, and the preliminary taxable value, now this is after exemptions and things of that nature, was approximately $6.9 billion. The certified number for assessed value came in at $7.1 billion. The certified taxable value is $6.6 billion, with the amount that's under ARB review, ARB being the Appraisal Review Board. It's $39 million for a total taxable value, including ARB review, of approximately $6.7 billion. And just for comparison, for 2018, the total taxable value, including ARB, at certification was $6.3 billion. So there was a nice increase. The 2018 total taxable value at the last supplement was approximately 6.3 also. So during the year, we received supplements that shows us the changes in assessed value and taxable value. And so this is the last supplement that we received for the 2018 tax year. Harris County, this is preliminary information, so it is subject to change. The assessed value in the preliminaries was $375 million. The preliminary taxable value was almost $359 million. Now, again, this does not take into account hearing loss, late exemption applications, and any other items dealing with the Appraisal Review Board. So these figures are subject to change. As you'll see when it comes to the 2018 figures, the preliminary taxable value for 2018 was almost $327 million, but at certification, the taxable value was only $298 million, and the assessed value at that time was $305 million. As of the last supplement for 2018, the total taxable value was $309.7 million. So you can see that there's approximately a 9% change between the preliminary and those numbers at certification. As you know, there's homestead exemptions. The city is able to provide a homestead exemption to homeowners. But in order to adopt a homestead exemption, it has to be done by July 1st for that tax year. So for the current fiscal year 2020, we're not able to implement a homestead exemption. because we did not adopt it by July 1st. So if we're to think about a homestead exemption in the future, it would have to be for the future tax year 2020. The homestead exemption is based on a percentage of the appraised value, and it must be a minimum of $5,000. And you'll see the impact of the minimum on a future slide. And the percentage adopted cannot exceed 20%. And this information is found in the Property Tax Code, specifically Section 11.13. This information we're providing for discussion purposes only. We have the homestead exemption on a scale going from 2.5% to 12%. We also have it presented by county, Fort Bend and Harris County. 2.5% happens to be the lowest homestead exemption within our benchmark cities. That's the city of Pearland, and 12% is the highest, which is provided by the city of Sugar Land. The certified values for Fort Bend show that the average home value in Fort Bend County is $233,072, and there's a total number of 16,501 homesteads. If there was a 2.5% homestead exemption, that would equate to a $605,000 reduction in revenue, but the savings to the homeowner would be $37. That's for an entire year. I'll move to the 12% in Fort Bend. So for the city, a 12% homestead exemption would mean a reduction in revenue of approximately $2.9 million, and the annual savings to the homeowner would be $176, and that is Fort Bend.
So if we gave them 12%, they would only save $176 a year?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Wow.
Yes, and it's less than that for Harris County.
He would lose $3 million a year.
Correct.
And how will we make that up?
So we do have another column that shows that if we were to increase the property tax, so for the 12%, that would mean a 5-cent increase in the tax rate if we were to attempt to offset that loss. And just really quickly, for Harris County, a 2.5% reduction with the average homestead of $140,000 would not produce a $5,000 minimum, so we would have to provide at least $5,000 to all of the homes within Harris County at the 2.5% level. So at 2.5%, that would mean an annual savings to homeowners of $32. At 12%, it would be $106. So combining both of those, if we were to have a 2.5% homestead exemption, that would mean a reduction of $662,275. At 12%, it would be a reduction of $3,097,584.
I think it's important to note staff is not pro-homestead or not. One of the things that we've tried to do is to make sure individuals are educated and understand what that means and what decisions would need to be made as relates to as we move and looking at the impact of the 3.5% on next year. As you know, 2 years from now, we will be building our Fire Station 6, which will increase. We would have to find $1.2 million for the staffing to support that. So those, as we look at our financial models, it's important that we make conscious decisions on where do we go and how we fund the service delivery and to maintain the service to our citizens.
And I am pro-homestead, but can we afford it? That's why I said, how do we make it up? Where do we get that money from? Bring that the rollback rate that's going to be reduced. And then, we're talking about, not that $37 is nothing, but at the end of the day, how does the city make up millions of dollars that we're getting ready to lose from our upcoming budgets? So, we have to have a plan in place before we vote on doing something. So that's why I said, how do we make it up if we decided that? So.
Well, that's part of the discussion that as we get your direction as our elected body. One of the things that when people ask me the question, our budget is 70% personnel. 59% of that is public safety. So in the end, when you're talking about $3 million, it's apples and oranges when you're trying to compare Sugar Land and Missouri City as relates to the dollars that are available to be utilized. So as we've talked about with some of the previous slides, if we had some of the flexibility, we would have the bandwidth and possibly the flexibility to provide things like homestead exemption. But we wanted to make sure that folks realize here's what it is and what's most important: enhanced or maintaining service delivery that you currently have, and then more importantly, enhanced, where is that going to come from?
So, and I guess the question is, do you want to save $37 a year or $100 a year and then lose 5 officers? I mean, you have to look at that. So that's something that we have to look at, because we're going to have to cut services somewhere.
Yeah.
So, and that's something we have to always consider.
Lana, you know what also would be helpful is to actually put a figure as to what that tax increase would mean to that homeowner that's averaging $233,000 in Fort Bend or $140,000 in Harris County, to show how much more in taxes they would also be paying versus how much they would be saving, if you will, in homestead exemption. Another thing I was going to say, there's a lot of narratives that go out there about a lot of different things, you know, and so, you know, the devil is in the details. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important also, you know, there are people that say, oh man, maybe if you just cut council salary or the mayor's salary or whatever, you know. Yeah, exactly. You know, I'm like, yeah, we get paid the big bucks, you know, that little stipend. But at any rate, my point is that, you know, it's important for everybody to know what makes up. I mean, we talk about it all the time, what's in the budget, what our expenditures are, what our revenues are, but I just think it's important that as we're having these discussions, these very, very important discussions to have, because there's all this comparison. You know, Sugarland gets this, Pearland gets this. Why can't we get this? And I do believe, I want to entertain the idea of having a homestead exemption, but I want the voters to decide. I want every resident to decide, is it worth it to them to cut services, or is it worth it to them to increase their taxes in order to get the homestead exemption to be like the other cities? And if the citizens are okay with that, then, you know, I mean, of course, as their elected body, I think we should be okay with that too.
Sir.
Okay. One other item that we need to consider when we're reviewing our property tax assumptions and estimates for the budget is the property tax deferral. So the Texas law allows the postponement of current and delinquent property taxes if you're 65 or older, disabled as defined by law, qualified disabled veteran, their unmarried surviving spouses, and some others which I have listed here. Once they have filed, the taxes are deferred, but they are not canceled, and they have an interest rate of 5%. So the taxes accumulate, there's interest, and once the homeowner is no longer living in the home or no longer owns the home, the taxes become due. And so on our current tax roll for tax years 2017 and prior, we have tax deferrals in the total amount of $493,228, and that is for 122 properties. For the 2018 tax roll, which is not on the slide, the amount of deferred tax for 2018 only was $140,566, and that was 138 accounts, so an increase of 16.
And Mayor, I think it's important to note that although that revenue is not coming to the city, we still are providing the services to all of these citizens. And as we have an increased aging population, it's conceivable that that number may continue to grow, but we still provide it because that's the law. But we want to make sure you're aware of what's on the books currently as it relates to what's not being collected.
Okay. Next, we'll talk about fund balance and our bond ratings. As you know, on the 19th, we'll be bringing to you the proposed budget, and we do need to consider whether or not we want to replenish any of our fund balance. And so we wanted to provide you with information regarding the additional cost, if any, if we were to have a lower bond rating due to our decreased fund balance. I do want to state that when it comes to our debt service rate, the 3.5% cap does not apply, so we are able to raise the INS portion of our property taxes to pay for debt. I want to provide some information about the scorecard. We have 2 rating agencies that we have used in the past couple of years. It's Moody's and Standard & Poor. I will focus on Moody's ratings. Moody's, 30% of their scorecard, of course, they're looking at different elements of the city, our financials, our management, but 30% of that rating is based on fund balance and cash. And they look at our fund balance as a percentage of revenues, that's 10% of the score. They look at our fund balance trend over a 5-year change, that's 5% of the score. And then they look at our cash balance using the same, the percentage of revenues and the 5-year change. S&P, Standard & Poor, they focus on the available cash as a percentage of expenditures and debt service. They don't use fund balance. We have a rating report from Moody's for 2018 when we issued debt, and we have one from 2017 from Standard & Poor's. And inside of their reports, they include factors that could result in a decreased rating. Right now with Moody's, we're at an AA2. And in the report, the factors that could lead to a downgrade is a prolonged or significant tax base contraction, erosion of reserves, and additional debt issuance absent tax base growth. For Standard & Poor, there would be a lower rating if we drew down our reserve to levels not considered very strong, coupled with deterioration in operational performance. So for Moody's, looking at their scorecard, wanted to show what was considered to be a strong fund balance. As you know, our policy is to have a strong balance of 20 to 30%. We're currently in the AA, or AA2. The strong fund balance is 15 to 30%, and currently we're at 20%. For A, the fund balance would be 5 to 15%. Now that would be a decrease in our rating, and B, AA, if the fund balance was 0 to 5%. Within each rating, there's 3 levels. Okay, so I presented AA, we're AA2, and of course AA1 means you're closer to a AAA, and AA3 means you're closer to a single A. I looked at some of the other Texas cities that have the same rating as of 9/30/2017, and I looked at their general fund balance as a percentage of their revenues, and the median was 31%. The highest was 88.4%, and the lowest was 18%. There would be an additional cost if we were to downgrade. I received information from our financial advisor that if we were to go from an AA2 to AA3, that it would cost, for every $1 million in debt issued, it would cost an additional $50,000. So that would be the increase, basically, in the interest that we would pay.
Mayor, as we develop the budget and what you will receive in 2 weeks from now, we wanted to just share with you the guiding principles that you set forth and what we utilize in reaching the responsible budget that you will be receiving in the coming weeks. One, we felt it was important that we try to look at ways in which to enhance our fund balance due to the unknown impact of the 3.5% cap on the property tax. To remain fiscally conservative with our revenue projections, which we've done. As you know, our sales tax is a volatile revenue source, so we always are mindful of that. Maximize fee revenue opportunities and identify creative ways to enhance our revenue. As you know, we recently completed a fee study, or in the process of finalizing that fee study, to look at are there some opportunities, where do we compare with other benchmark cities, and ensuring that the revenue is where the cost is where it needs to be, and the fees are where they need to be. To implement where feasible recommendations from studies currently underway. Tonight you heard a number of those with the development study, what we do related to our employees as we move forward. So all those things would be, we'll be mindful of that. The guiding principles continued is to focus on your council strategic priorities that you set forth. Community engagement, since I've been the city manager, has been very, very important. And one of the things that we've done as part of this budget development is to have a number of community town hall district meetings, a youth town hall recently, and this morning we had a clergy roundtable where we were able to answer a number of questions with the 15-plus clergy that were in attendance. and utilization of our Facebook Live messaging to the community to make sure that if individuals aren't able to come to the meetings, that they can view it online. One of the things we always look at, are there ways to not only maintain services but to enhance services? So we'll be coming to you on some new and increased levels of services that benefits our residents. Continuing our robust capital improvement program. And then lastly, as you know, last year we conducted a 5-year financial plan on where we need to be from a city of Missouri City standpoint to fiscally move forward in our future. So we'll be sharing updates on where we stand with that. The council priorities, in this case, you met on February 8th and 9th of this year, and you identified the following 6 priorities. Number 1 was economic development and redevelopment with special emphasis on Texas Parkway and Cartwright. Infrastructure, continuing our efforts with sidewalks, roads, partnerships as well. The fire department, as you know, on the horizon is the building of Fire Station 6. And that is 2 years away, but planning on that is currently underway. That facility is under design, and at some point we're going to have to buy the fire engine trucks, as well as to start the recruitment for the individuals to work that facility. Employees, you want to make sure that we stay market competitive, as well as looking at how our employees are impacted. Beautification, as you recall, continuance of investment in beautification around our city. You approved the previous council a year and a half ago approved $2.5 million for beautification on Texas Parkway as well as Cartwright. We're in the stages now of going out to get that done over the course of the next year. So you'll be seeing construction and the median beautification as well as reader signs coming to fruition. And lastly, you stated the importance of partnerships. And as you know, we've been working not only with Fort Bend County, but with TxDOT to leverage the resources that we have in the best way we can for the citizens that we serve. When you look at each one of these, we want to just give you a glimpse of our focus in the development of the budget. One is under economic development and redevelopment. As you stated, one of your high priorities is redevelopment of Texas Parkway and Cartwright Road. Joe Esch, today our Economic Development Director, talked about some of the exciting things that are going on, not only in this redevelopment area, but throughout the city. And we'll share with you in the coming weeks some of those. We provided you with a memo highlighting some of those efforts. Supporting Fort Bend Toll Road and the Sienna Town Center. There are some exciting projects that are on the horizon that our citizens will be very happy to hear about. Monitoring existing partnership agreements. We have a number of economic development incentive agreements that we monitor those on an annual basis. Continually marketing our community, letting folks know that Missouri City is a place that we want them to be. Investment in public facilities. One of the things we've done most recently in partnering with our TERS 1 is a new parks facility, which last year was ranked as our worst public facility. So the TERS 1 board voted unanimously to invest in that facility to bring it up to where it needs to be, as well as the Missouri City Gym, which is a partnership with the Fort Bend County. Lastly, strategically identifying areas of improvement. We understand that there are a number of areas in this corridor, as well as areas for economic development opportunities. So we're looking at all those, and we'll be bringing recommendations to you during the budgetary process.
Are we still updating on the website? I haven't looked lately. Infrastructure projects, where they are in the process, when they've started, when they're going to be complete. I know at one point we were putting that on the website. Is that still on there?
Yes, ma'am. It should be on there, but at this point, let me double check on whether or not it's been updated, Mayor. We have that information, so I'll get with Shashi and Stacy Walker, our communications director, and get an update on if they're updating that accordingly.
Okay.
Under infrastructure, as part of the budget process, we plan to upgrade signal intersection at Colonial Lakes at Highway 6, GPS emergency preemption and priority service hardware, central software for traffic management. As you know, with more cars on our street, Cliff from our Public Works Department has really done a great job in really trying to help us navigate that flow of traffic throughout our city. Infrastructure improvements to the Mustang Bayou wastewater treatment plant. As you know, we recently started the work for the expansion of our regional water plant. Expansion of the Seat Bank, Flat Bank wastewater treatment plant, Glen Lakes Bridge replacement, which I mentioned earlier in my update to you, IT replacement for our critical infrastructure, and lastly, continuance of our sidewalk replacement program are just a number of the things to mention. We talked about the fire department, which is your third priority. As part of this budget, you will see part-time support staff for the fire marshal's office, providing our men and women of the fire service with protective clothing equipment to meet the state adopted guidelines, equipment for the new fire engine, which is part of the replacement schedule, equipment for the new aerial tower ladder truck. And then one of the things our chief is in the process of and is very excited about is the development and implementation of the Junior Fire Explorer program. Lastly, we're in the process of finalizing the design and construction, or beginning the construction for our Fire Station 6, and we're excited about some of the work that we feel is ahead to support our fire department. As relates to our employees, we've set aside funds for 1% one-time salary adjustment. We're in the process of planning for our fiscal year 2021 update to the compensation study. Coverage, as our benefits consultant shared with you earlier, coverage of the employee health insurance cost increase based on some of our wellness initiatives. We've worked very, very hard to get that number and that increased cost reduced, and I think it's paying off, and we'll have that final number hopefully in the coming month. The employee-focused committees continue to do an outstanding job. Our employee recognition and wellness committees are doing great. And then tonight you heard the employee survey results. Our intention is to implement those recommendations, and you may see some of those recommendations budgetarily in the coming weeks. Beautification, we just continue. I'm not going to read these to focus in on beautification throughout our community, whether that's tractor mowing and trimming, looking at a master plan at Stay-Mow, doing the annual maintenance that will be required once we do the beautification on Cartwright and Texas Parkway, securing additional contract for litter collection in our parks. One of the things we talk about is our pride for parks throughout our city. But sometimes when you look at a number of those, you see trash throughout. We want to make sure we have a clean city. We want to make sure that litter is picked up and collected and put in the trash bin versus out in our beautiful parks. And then lastly, wood fiber surfacing materials for our playgrounds. We continue to work to make sure that all of our residents have ADA accessibility to our playgrounds and that they can enjoy the amenities that we offer. Lastly, partnerships. And we're taking a little time tonight because we think it's important that the community understands that there's a strategic process. You share with us what's important, and we try to align the resources to address those. Partnerships has been very key, particularly with some of our diminishing revenues, on trying to find ways in which to address some of these needs. One is beautification, and we're very fortunate to partner with TxDOT, who are covering the cost of the medians in this case. They also are working with us regarding Texas Parkway turnarounds. Throughout Texas Parkway, I get a large amount of calls of individuals who've tried to turn and have damaged their cars and their tires. This is an effort and a partnership with TxDOT to get that remedied, and you'll be hearing more updates related to that. We've been working with the General Land Office regarding the flood alert system. After Hurricane Harvey, we had a lot of flooding, and one of the things we're trying to do is to make sure that our residents are well aware of the impacts that may be coming, particularly as it relates to flooding. We've been working with Fort Bend County and the developer to find funding to fund the Beltway 8 connector project. We've been successful in doing that. So as you can see throughout this process, we've worked very hard in working with the TERS 1, TERS 2 boards, as well as the 501c3 Missouri City Parks Foundation to really bring in millions of dollars to help us and limit some of the costs associated to some of these projects.
Do we have a timeline on TxDOT and the turnarounds?
The turnarounds, I think the last update, Shashi, was that they're in process. So what's the timeline now?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We just met with them about a week ago. They have assured us that they will get it done in the month of September.
Oh, that's nice.
This year.
So we'll just wait till the end of the year.
Yeah. I didn't say that, Mayor. So at this point, we're going to ask Elaine if she would to just go ahead and finalize the presentation, but we wanted to share with you our focus as we move into the budget process.
Okay, so I'm going to provide a little information about our past, which is our current fiscal year 2019, our present, as far as where we're at in the budgeting process for fiscal year 2020, and things that we have to consider when it comes to the future. So for the past, our current tax rate for 2018 tax year, which is fiscal year 2019, is 63 cents per $100 valuation. And that is comprised of the maintenance and operation, which goes into our general fund, of 46 cents, and our interest and sinking, which pays for our debt service, of 17 cents. So this is our major revenue source for the general fund.
So, Elena, at 63 cents, what is that percentage we're at right now?
When you say what is the percentage?
Yes, for our rollback rate. What is the percentage we're at right now?
Well, we haven't calculated that yet, Mayor, because at this point we still have a preliminary.
Okay.
I think when you look at the estimates, just based on a preliminary from Harris County, I think we've looked at about 65.
Close to 65.
About 65. So we've, at this point, she'll share with you what we're assuming at this point that we may come in at.
Okay. All right. So continuing with what the past is, last fiscal year we identified $2.1 million in cuts to reallocate the funding to council priorities and operation commitments. We also implemented the fiscal year 2019 compensation study. We reviewed all of our fleet inventory and we funded the highest needs. We assessed our IT infrastructure and commitments for fiscal year 19 and funded the critical and committed needs. We invested and improved the animal services operations, invested in public safety, standard of care coverage, also invested in City Hall landscaping and Texas Parkway and Cartwright beautification, developed a 5-year long-range financial outlook, and we're conducting a fee study, which we're almost complete with, in order to maximize our revenue opportunities. Present. As you saw earlier, we received the certified rolls for Fort Bend County in late July. We expect to receive the certifieds from Harris County in mid-August, and at that time we'll be able to calculate the effective tax rate and the rollback rate. When it comes to projecting our revenues, we are using a conservative approach, and you'll see that in the next couple of slides when I go over the assumptions for the major revenue sources. We have calculated all of our personnel costs, and we have met with all of the departments, department heads, and staff to review their budget requests. We've also reviewed the supplemental budget requests that came in from the departments and made funding decisions based on your priorities, community requests, and the needs of the departments. So we are finalizing the fiscal year 20 proposed budget to bring to you on August 19th. And of course, we'll be addressing your priorities. We'll also continue to fund the INS rate at 17 cents. And we'll also address the community priorities such as mowing and trimming. We have asked the departments to maintain a flat or reduced budget, and you will see that. They have done that, a pretty good job of doing that. We also have reviewed all fleet inventory and determined the highest needs, and we're providing funding for those items within the proposed budget. And we're also doing the same for IT infrastructure and commitments, looking at the committed and critical needs for IT. I'll show you a little information about the three major funding sources for the general fund. It's the property tax, sales tax, and franchise fees. So currently within the proposed budget, we have an assumed tax rate of 63 cents, which is consistent with the last fiscal year, with 46 cents going into the general fund for maintenance and operations, and the debt service at 17 cents. This would provide $32.7 million in revenue for the general fund, which is an increase from last year, and that's based on the assessed valuations increasing.
Mayor, real quick, the 63, if we made the assumption that it was 65, the proposal here is to keep it at the point 63. At some point, you will have to make an action on whether or not you want to go all the way up to the rollback or go with the recommendation, my recommendation of staying flat. But if you look at it from a standpoint of the revenue increase on the property tax side, going from 30.5 to 32.7, that's roughly about a $2 million increase on the revenue side for just the property tax. And if we use the example, for example, the Homestead, we will be upside down just on this increment here on the property tax standpoint, not factoring in the long list of needs that departments have requested, stating they need more to provide the services that you've stated are important.
But we're not at 8% now, are we?
This year, what I'm saying is we can go up to the 8%.
Where are we now? Like right now?
We haven't, at this point, this assumes it'll be less than what the 8% is, keeping it at 63. This is, the 63 for the current rate is right below the 8%.
8%, okay.
Yeah.
So I just wanted that number so people can understand how much of a drop we're going to have to do at this point.
Yes, ma'am.
So, yeah.
I have a question either for you, Anthony, or Bill. We have how much, as far as millions, in sidewalk repair and street repair needs for the city? I know we're not nowhere close to what we're doing as far as allotting the money. Have we talked preliminarily about how much in the budget we're allotting to that going into 2020?
We have. I can tell you that there's no way possible that we could address the infrastructure needs that we currently have. The last number that I received was about $9 million based on our street infrastructure.
$9 million?
$9 million related to our street infrastructure. That doesn't deal with drainage. We have, I think currently we spent about $250,000 for our sidewalk program.
I thought it was
400,000 for our sidewalk program. However, the needs are in the multi-millions, and we can't keep up. So we're addressing those things right now the best way we can, but there are clearly more needs than revenue and resources to address those needs.
And I would like to say, and not that I'm suggesting this, at one point the city was not repairing sidewalks. And when we start losing millions out of our budget, we're going to have to get really creative on how we meet the needs of the citizens.
Mm-hmm.
There are other cities that do not repair sidewalks. Not something I'm suggesting, but I mean just something that everyone needs to, keep their mind open on. When we start losing millions out of our budget, there are going to have to be some things that we have to cut. So.
Sure.
Okay, the next major revenue is sales tax, and we are being conservative with a 3% growth factor. This would bring in $9.4 million, and it includes offsets for the sales tax rebate payments that we are expecting to pay in the next fiscal year. Last item is the franchise fee. Now, this one is going to decrease. As stated previously, we expect it to have a decrease of approximately $200,000, and that's due to the new legislation, SB 1152, where providers are not responsible for paying for both telecom and cable right-of-way fees. Okay, so the future. So as we look at the funding that is available, we do need to continue, like we just discussed, to monitor and address our aging infrastructure. We have to monitor and establish an approach to any legislature impacts, which you've heard about also today. We also will conduct a citywide drainage study and pursue federal funding for the recommended improvements, and will continue service implementation of a sustainable approach that will lessen the impact of the property tax cap that will be in effect in the next fiscal year. So some of the items that are left when it comes to the budget, of course, on the 19th of this month, we're going to file the proposed budget, and we will have a budget work session. We'll also have another budget work session on September 3rd, and during these work sessions, we'll go into detail in the department and other fund budgets. The proposed tax rate and rolls will be submitted on September 3rd, and that's after we receive Harris County certified. We'll have a budget hearing and hopefully adopt the budget on September 16th. The proposed property tax increase, that would require 2 public hearings, and we would have those on September 16th and September 23rd. So those are the items as far as the timeline left for adopting the fiscal year 20 budget.
Would that assume that you'd go above the 63 cents? Current 63
This
cents?
assumes that we'll go over the effective tax rate, which we don't have that calculated just yet.
So, Mayor, that concludes our report. I know it's a little awkward. You're receiving this budget presentation at a council meeting. One of the things that we felt was important is to make sure you're aware of the budgetary process as we're developing it. And we haven't been able to have the traditional work sessions based on scheduling, but we felt it was important to schedule it during the council meeting so you guys could have a glimpse of what we're doing in preparation for the proposed budget and your final adoption.
And I agree. And just to let the public know also, even though we have a cap on the rollback rate, I mean, once we start looking at this, I mean, there's always the option of taking it out to the public for them to vote on an increase on our taxes, or if they want reduction in services. So it's always that option also. So we do have options, and I want the community to know that, but we will look at everything we possibly can before we look at increases, cutting, and that type of thing. So.
And Mayor, as Elena stated, and I appreciate you saying that, last year, as Elena alluded to earlier, we cut a large amount of dollars in my departments. I'll give them a large amount of kudos. Over the last couple of years, they have really stepped forth to make sure, based on, because you're the touch point to the citizens that we serve, to make sure that your priorities, the council priorities, were funded. I think the more and more we keep going back saying cut, particularly when a large proportion of the budget is personnel and about 1% discretionary, we have to look at creative ways. And what we've tried to do, in addition to being efficient and effective, looking at enhancing our revenues through the revenues study that we're completing. We're trying to do our part and to let you know we're doing that due diligence before we hand it over to you.
And just, I think if I remember correctly, last year we cut, $2 million without cutting any staff.
Correct.
So I don't know if we can cut too much more without, the latter happening. So that's just something that, once again, we have to put out there so the community understands where we are. We've already cut $2 million.
And the looming 3.5% and the other commitments that we've made for 2 years, 3 years. I think it's incumbent upon me to make sure, as we do our financial forecasting, that we make sure that you, as the elected body, are aware of those commitments and what that looks like for years to come.
Okay. Thank you, Elena. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to adopt.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. 7A1.
All right. An ordinance of the City of Missouri City, Texas, amending uses and regulations in PD Plan Development District number 34, describing said 9.467 acre development tract of land, regulating and restricting the development and use of the property within such PD Plan Development District, amending the zoning district map of the City of Missouri City, providing for an amendment to the comprehensive plan, providing for repeal, providing a penalty, providing for severability, and containing other provisions relating to the subject.
All right, Jennifer, you're up.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
Evening. Great.
This is for a project called Dream Court. The location is shown on the aerial view that is on the overhead. As you might be familiar with, longtime residents, this was the old Tank City site that was developed in the mid-'80s. The buildings were demolished, but the pavement, the building footprints, all of that remained on the site. The current property owner purchased the site and in the early 2000s was approved for this plan development district. And the intention of the plan development district was to locate a community center on the location. that community center and the allowances of that PD were never constructed, but the same property owner still owns that property and now seeks to locate an office warehouse project with commercial retail uses. So the sole purpose of this PD amendment is for those allowances. So the property owner has submitted a conceptual site plan that's included in the packet, and it shows the utilization of those existing building footprints. The foundations, clearly, all of that would still have to go through the permitting process for feasibility for construction. But the general layout that's there today, the property owner is looking to reuse. So the PD was structured for that purpose to vary from some of our standards that new construction, if you were dealing with raw land and implementing new construction, the PD was designed so that that property could be reused within the boundaries of our ordinance. So the proposal that's before you, what the ordinance should read, is the removal of the community center use for this PD, allow for the development of office warehouse uses with commercial retail uses that you typically find in the LC3 district along the Highway 90A frontage, update the LC3 district standards. So all of the LC3 use district standards would apply within this PD. Those standards include heightened area regulations, building regulations, architectural standards, trash disposal, outside placement, storage, sales and services, landscaping, parking, signs, and fencing. The modification that you see in the ordinance and that should go into the new ordinance are the deviations to the landscaping regulations. And as you might be familiar with, the landscaping regulations in terms of the transitional buffer yards, the width of the area that are typically required along the street sides of a non-residential development. The proposal is to allow the width that is there today to be able to be maintained. They would still be required to add what we call type B landscaping, which is an assortment of trees and shrubs within that area, so it would be landscaped in green space. But the deviation would allow for them to utilize that area, not having to open up more concrete to expand the area to comply with the current standards. The additional recommendation in there is to allow for what we typically would require landscape islands and diamonds to break up the areas of the parking lot, to allow for that to be as shown on the site plan. And you still have the screening that would be required along the street side with the transitional buffers that I just mentioned. And then finally, the requirement would be, or I think that's it. Sorry about that. What this ordinance also does, the platting item in the ordinance, the subdivision ordinance already covers the requirements for platting. So this ordinance does not need to track the platting requirement for this site. What happened prior to this property owner purchasing the property, it's a little corner tract that appears right here at the corner of and the street names have changed. So don't quote, I can't see the new street name. But right there on the corner, on the east corner of Highway 90. And this property, it's a separate piece. It's not part of this PD. And that was separated many years ago. So by our subdivision ordinance, those two property owners would need to replat that property to pull those properties out. This ordinance also would adopt this site plan to the ordinance, so that if this development does not occur within 5 years of the date that this application was filed, the property owner would have to come back through this process, the amendment process, in order to update the site plan or propose a new site plan and development schedule.
So they are tying the site plan to this?
The proposed ordinance that you have is tying the site plan to the ordinance.
Okay. So let's open the public hearing before we get started. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Go ahead. Councilmember Pearson, did you have a question?
Has there, if everything goes according to plan, Have they given any indication of the timetable for them to start?
So they were ready to start yesterday.
Good.
They actually they've started to clean the site. They're ready to start construction within the next several months.
Okay.
So the only stretch in that schedule has been to go through this process just to make sure that the zoning is in order.
Do they have any businesses that they've already discussed or talked to or made potential?
So I believe the applicant is here, and I'll let them speak towards that.
Hi. You can come on up.
My name is Noble Enlow, and I represent Akeem Elijah. We're ready to get started whenever we get a permit.
Okay.
We're ready to pour concrete.
So are there any potential businesses that you guys have talked to or?
Yes, ma'am. We've already got several businesses already lined up to go into the facility as soon as we get it built.
Okay.
I don't know if you know Akeem Elijah personally, but he's the type of guy, he builds something first class and he wants to keep it first class. The clientele that we'll be bringing in there is going to be clientele that'll be clean, presentable. Me and him have spent many months looking at different facilities and planning and strategizing the way we're going to build this. And the clientele we're bringing in, like say we're doing office warehouse buildings, each compartment will be like 2,200 square feet in each compartment, be an office and a warehouse combined. And the people we'll be bringing in will be basically like plumbers, electricians, people that'll be inside the building and not outside the building. In other words, they'll be using it for a small office and a storage place that they'll be working out of. So when you drive by, you won't see junk cars everywhere and mechanicking on things underneath the streets and stuff. It'll be a very nice, beautiful facility. And we're going to start off building the two buildings right off the start, and they own, you can show them, I guess. It would be on this side of the property, here on the back, there's a street that goes through the middle of the property. The front we're using for retail. We're going to come back and put some really nice, beautiful retail buildings in. We've already seen them and picked them out the way we're going to build it. And the back buildings, there'll be a real pretty stone look to the front of the buildings. And then it'll be, each building will be right at 15,000 square feet in each building. And the way they're designed is we're trying to stay with the layout of the land that he had bought. And so what we done, we went in and took the old existing pads out and using the parking around it. So the buildings actually will be a long building, and you'll be entrance on each side of the building for the clients to come into. So, but yeah, it's going to be a nice facility, and the way he's building it is, it's going to be represent the community well. And we are ready to get started. If we had a permit today, we'd be probably starting tomorrow. So I just got off the phone with Akeem in London. In fact, at 6 o'clock, it was 12 o'clock there, and he called me wanting to know, have you found out anything yet? We're ready to get started. So he is excited about getting started to building in Missouri City. And we have met with everybody, and we've enjoyed meeting with everybody. They seem like everybody in Missouri City is good people, and we're looking forward to working with them and building some nice facilities here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else who would like to speak during the public hearing? Any other questions, council? If not, we'll vote to close the public hearing. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I move to close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Is there a motion to approve the ordinance?
I make the motion to approve the ordinance.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? All opposed? Motion passes.
Good.
7A2.
An ordinance of the City of Missouri City, Texas, amending regulations in PD Plan Development District Number 66, consisting of a 24,701 acre tract of land, describing said 24,701 acre tract of land, regulating and restricting the development and use of the property within such PD Plan Development District, amending the zoning district map of the City of Missouri City, providing for an amendment to the comprehensive plan, providing for repeal and providing a penalty, providing for severability, and containing other provisions relating to the subject.
Welcome back.
Well, thank you. So the aerial of PD 66 is before you. It's a busy map because there's a lot going on over there. But just to orient you, Colonial Lakes Drive is to the east of the property. Highway 6 is the frontage, and Dulles Avenue is over here to the west. PD 66 is a large PD. It includes Spring Creek Barbecue. It includes Primeway Federal Credit Union. The raceway that's at the corner is not within the boundaries of the PD. So all of those commercial uses surrounding the raceway are within the boundaries. The Hampton Inn, and then the two-story new Tank City that's under development within there. The purpose of this request is by Talent Academy, which is a child care center that's located within the PD. Their location is here on the backside, just to the west of the Spring Creek Barbecue, next to the Bedrock Comics shopping center. They're the facility right in the space right next to that location. So the child care center, the property owner, is now seeking to start phase 2 of their construction. They want to expand the uses that are permitted within their tract. And as you recall, the city's zoning regulations, uses that are permitted, child care facilities are not permitted within shopping centers or integrated business developments. So that is the purpose of why this property owner made the application to amend the regulations of the PD. Those are the only changes that are being proposed to the PD. So the property owner is seeking to expand their development. They've provided conceptual design of what that would look like. And so the existing building is this here on the backside. And then the new development would extend out towards that access road that they share with the other businesses within that PD. The uses would include a restaurant use, a swim school, an art school, commercial retail uses. Not necessarily accessory to the daycare. They would provide some partnership or ability for students at the daycare to utilize the services, but they would be standalone businesses that would be open to the general public. The property owner originally, when they made their application, requested that alcohol sales be restricted from any restaurant use. The purpose of that restriction was due to any kind of conflicts that the sale of alcohol would have with child care facilities. And if you recall, going through the child care regulations, the updates, that was one of the concerns that was brought up. The applicant made that request. Legal has returned that the city cannot regulate alcohol sales from businesses, that is regulated by the state. So that does not appear in the ordinance before you.
But they wouldn't be able to get a permit correctly because of the 200 feet?
You still, right. So the city still has alcohol sales regulations that are adopted, and you do still have regulations in terms of the distance that certain liquor licenses or permits can operate within a certain proximity of a child care center. It doesn't apply to all types of liquor licenses or permits, but there are regulations for that. Yes. So the property owner expressed that. P&Z's recommendation also included approval for that, and then also, let me show the site plan. This is the proposed site plan for this new development, and I'm going to flip it this way. And so it's a little long, so maybe a little difficult to see on the aerial, on the overhead. But the common access road that connects the shopping center to the PD is down here on the bottom of this site plan. This is the expanded portion of the building, and this is the existing child care facility here. So they would add parking in the rear, and then they would add some additional parking in the front to service all the new uses and then expansion to the child care business itself. P&Z's recommendation that's before you includes a recommendation for the applicant or the property owner to provide a shrubbery hedge along this common property line between the child care center site and the Bedrock Comics shopping center site. And that was as a result of the property owner from the shopping center raising concern where they've had instances of people utilizing the child care center, parking in the rear of the shopping center as well as in the front, and going between the properties. And they had some concerns with conflicts with traffic, maneuvering, different people trying to access those businesses with children going through those parking lots. So P&Z's recommendation is to try to mitigate against that by providing the shrubbery hedge along that common line. Mm-hmm. They would still have access to both sites with the common access drive at the bottom, but it would hopefully reduce some of those points of conflict.
Okay. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
Second.
You have a second? And quick question before you take off.
Yes.
They're not required to put a playground out here anywhere in a parking lot, no?
So you have child care regulations?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
And they actually have a playground towards the rear.
Yeah.
So their existing child care center meets the requirements for child care regulations that have been adopted.
That was my concern.
Right.
Okay.
And so in that sense, this would be kind of the reverse of what those child care regulations would do, where this was a center designed as a child care center, and now they're looking to expand to add the additional businesses.
Okay.
Yes.
Quick question. I noticed that there was one protest letter and one support letter. The protest letter was at the competing shopping center owner? Or?
The protest letter was actually a competing child care center.
A competing child care center. Okay, I got you.
Right down in the back.
That's right adjacent to the entire PD.
I knew it had to be something relative to a competitor.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have anyone here who would like to speak in reference to this particular item? If not, we will close the public hearing. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Is there a motion to approve the ordinance?
I move to approve the ordinance.
Is there a second?
Second.
You want?
Go ahead.
Okay. Councilmember Pearson. All in favor? Motion passes. We have now 7B1. Public hearing to receive comments for or against the proposed program year 2019 Cdbg annual action plan.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Good evening again.
Good evening.
We are here in accordance to the Citizen Participation Plan to allow for a second public hearing for the 2019 Annual Action Plan. The first public hearing took place July 15th at the City Council meeting, and at that meeting, a presentation was presented to the public and council advising them that the city was approved an allocation of $284,000 for program year 19 CDBG activities. Those activities included public service and non-public service activities. A copy of the draft annual action plan is available on the city's website. It's also available in City Hall, at the library, and available to citizens or anyone who has any questions by request at the Development Services Department.
All righty. I'm sorry, were you done?
No, you're fine.
Okay. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
I move to open the public hearing.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor? Motion passes.
Shalisa, I have a question. In looking at the documentation, I noticed something. It says under non-public service activities that $38,000 was going to Hunters Glen HOA Park Improvement Project.
Yes, I did see that, and that is an error. The council, the CDAC committee, approved for that $38,000 to be used towards a first-time home buyers program and a residential paint project. So,
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure because I know that that's what we voted on. Okay, thank you.
Is there any other discussion or anyone else who would like to speak on this item? We'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion passes. A public hearing to receive comments for or against the proposed Community Development Block Grants 2019-2023 Consolidated Plan.
I move to open the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, which one? Councilmember Emery? Okay.
Hey. Only 4.
Good. Any comments? Okay, well, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion to close it.
Second.
And
Thank
we
you.
have a second from Councilmember Boney. All those in favor? Motion passes. Public hearing to receive comments for or against the proposed ordinance amending and extending the termination date of reinvestment zone number 1, City of Missouri City, to December 31st, 2039, and consider the ordinance on the first and final reading. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
I move to open the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Go ahead.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. So this is an ordinance that would extend the life of TERS 1. It currently is set to expire and terminate on December 31st, 2029. And if you approve the ordinance, then the term of TERS 1 will be extended by 10 years to December 31st, 2039. There is support from the Fort Bend County Commissioners. Staff has been in communication with Commissioner Grady Prestige, who is in favor of this and has committed his support to keep the TERS increment flowing to the TERS for the additional 10 years. Although under the statute, if you decide to extend the TERS, the county is under no obligation to participate during the extended term. But all indication is that they have agreed to do that in our discussions, in staff discussions with Commissioner Prestige.
You said that they have agreed? The county has agreed?
They haven't agreed formally, but our communications with Commissioner Prestige is he's in support of that and will seek that support when Commissioners Court meets on this subject.
Okay. Are there any questions or concerns? And there's no financial impact, correct?
No, I think based on the conversations we've had, Mayor, particularly as it relates to some of the public investment with the parks facility and having discussions with the commissioner, we felt that based on your priorities of redevelopment in the core area that encompasses this zone, this was a good move forward.
Okay. No problem. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close.
Second. All in favor? Motion passes. Is there a motion to approve the ordinance?
I move to approve the ordinance as written.
I second.
All those in favor? Motion passes. There are no appointments. 9A, authorizations. Consider authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute a contract for design services for the Mustang Bayou wastewater plant expansion.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
So we're back with the Mustang Bayou wastewater treatment plant and the Pearland purchase, which we just made our first payment on the plant. All right, I got a few notes here I'd like to read through. Over the last month and a half, we've gone through a couple steps I'd like to walk you through. With guidance from the 2013 consultant selection policy, we evaluated and ranked 7 different firms who were interested in the project. We shortlisted them down to three firms. We met with the PDI committee on July 9th to get authorization to move forward with the number 1 ranked firm, Ardura engineering firm. The PDI committee recommended city staff move forward with the number 1 ranked firm. On July 17th, city staff met with Ardura to scope the project and negotiate design and construction management. I'd like to talk about a couple key points of this. Also at this plant is it treats city wastewater and as well as MUD 47 and 48, who are also paying their pro rata share, which works out to be about $2.3 million out of the 10 total for the project. Also, in agreement with Pearland, we have to remove that plant from their grounds in 3.5 months. So at the end of December, that plant's got to be removed and in place at Mustang. So that's why it's so crucial to move forward with this meeting here, if possible. Just to end it up, staff recommends that City Council authorize the City Manager to execute the professional service contract with Ardura towards design and construction and management services for the Mustang Bayou Wastewater Treatment Plant rehabilitation and expansion in the amount not to exceed $1,081,000.
Is there a motion to authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute a contract for design services?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions?
I do have one question. We're going into the fourth quarter, rain, weather. Are there any exceptions if we are not able to get it out of there by December?
They'd work with us.
Okay.
If we run into a situation like that, they would completely understand that. Yeah.
Okay.
And just to clarify, these funds were budgeted in fiscal year 2019? Is that correct?
Sorry?
The funds were budgeted in fiscal year 2019?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All those in favor? Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
9B, consider authorizing the city manager to execute the purchase of a front-end loader. Hello.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Mike Tubbs. I'm your fleet superintendent. I'm here before you this evening in hopes that you'll approve the replacement of our front-end loader that was damaged back in May.
Is there a motion to authorize the city manager to execute the purchase of a front-end loader?
I'll make a motion to authorize.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions, concerns? All those in favor? Motion passes.
Thank you.
We'll go back. 9C, consider authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute a contract for the provision of renovation services related to the remodel of certain office space and restrooms at Fire Station Number 1. Chief
Good
Campbell?
evening, Mayor and Campbell. Gene Campbell here with Chief Partita in the back. He's sit here with me. We worked on this project with Public Works. This is going back to you approving the agreement between us and Fort Bend County to do some work at Station 1. Now we'd like to go ahead and negotiate a contract, which we've included in your packet, so we can get the work done at Fire Station 1.
Okay. Is there a motion to authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute a contract for the renovation services?
I move to authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute a contract.
All those in favor? Oh, well, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
A, consider ordinance amending Chapter 2, Administration of the Missouri City Code, amending regulations regarding tagging, final action on agenda items, and consider the ordinance on the first 2 readings.
I'll make a motion to postpone this until the next council meeting. We have 3 council members out, and I'd like them to be a part of the process.
Do we need a second?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor? All opposed? Jamila?
I have to pull up the charter to see what the reading, the exact words are.
So while Jamila's pulling that up, Anthony, are you requesting that we go back to 7B2?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do we have
I think those two. We need to do both of those two action
okay.
items.
Do I need a motion to go back or? Oh, do I need to just wait? I'll wait. Sorry.
Going back to the items, she wants to know, does she need to get a motion to go back to reconsider?
Okay. We'll go back to 7B2 while Jamila is looking up that information.
Are we going back to 7B2 to make that correction, or
Council,
we didn't?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I didn't know.
No, they're requesting that council goes back and do an approval for the 2019-2023 consolidated plan. So that wasn't on. So we need to just approve the plan. Okay. Okay. So is there a motion to approve the plan for 2019-2023 consolidated plan?
I make a motion to approve the consolidated plan with the edit to the
action plan as well.
Excuse me, the action plan as well, with the addition, with the edit of the 38,000, listing 27,000 for first-time homebuyers program and 11,000 for the painting program.
And do we need to do a motion for the action plan, or separately for the 2019 action plan, or can we? Are those together? We're doing them together.
They can be together, but they can be.
So this is for the 2019 action plan and 2019-23 consolidated plan.
Do they need to be separated, Otis, so they can do them together?
For the purposes of her, they can consolidate.
Okay. So we're good. We're doing them together.
Okay. My question was, because I don't have a regular agenda in front of me, were they the same item?
They were separate items on the agenda.
They were separate. So, okay, so first, do I have a motion for the 2019 action plan for approval? I have a motion?
Yes, with that edit.
Okay.
As listed.
And is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Motion passes.
Okay.
So 2019-2023 consolidated plan. Do I have a motion for council to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Is there? So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion passes. So we're good.
Motion, Mayor?
Councilmember Emery.
I'm sorry, to follow up the question about the last action that you all took the vote on, and there was only 3 votes. The charter says no action, so all actions have to have. So technically, to postpone is an action. So it's still required the 4 votes.
Mayor and Council, I guess the question is, since this is unchartered, would you like to move to the executive session to have discussion with the city attorney related to this item?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I think
we can go to
need
executive
to.
session.
It's like the
Code.
The code.
This is. So do we want to finish the agenda first and then go into executive session?
That's up to you all.
Yeah, let's finish the agenda and then we'll go into executive session, and then we'll just have to come back and whatever we need to do at that point. So we're going to move to now 11A because we're going to go into executive session over 10A once we're done. So 11A, consider a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute and the city secretary to attest a letter of intent from Grand Parkway Commercial for economic incentives.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. As you are aware, we have been working for some time with the owners of the Grand Park Center. What we're here to do this evening is we have a non-binding letter of intent. This is to put some formality to the discussions we've had thus far. It lays out the discussions we've had up to this point, the nature of the interaction, the project that they propose. As a part of that, we've also had discussions about a policy. So the purpose of tonight is to say, hey, here's the general framework that we're going to enter into. We would then start the formal documentation to bring that back to both this body as well as the TERS. As a part of that, we'll be bringing back an incentive policy. As y'all will recall, we have not had a formal policy to deal with these type of projects outside the Chapter 380. So, though we've had discussions in executive session, I would intend to bring back a policy for the council's consideration following, if this item is approved, that dealt with the use of funds, assessment of the availability of funds from the TERS, preference given to dollar-for-dollar matches of fund requests. Property owners must be kept in good condition. The property owners can't be delinquent. Those items that we've discussed with you in the past. So the asking for the council's permission to execute this letter of intent, and then we'll be back with formal documents and take this also to the TERS board.
Okay. And before we get too much further, Jamila, I took your... You want to read it, or is that going to mess us up?
It's fine.
Okay, okay. Because I read it for you.
It's okay.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
I make a motion to approve the resolution.
Is there a second?
A second.
All those in favor? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, Jamila, 11B.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Missouri City, Texas, denying Centerpoint Energy Houston Electric LLC's request increase into its electric transmission and distribution rates and charges within the City of Missouri City, making certain findings and containing certain provisions relating to the subject.
Go ahead, James.
This resolution, basically, back in April, you all voted to suspend a proposed rate increase for Centerpoint electricity customers within the city. That was in order to give the Gulf Coast Coalition of Cities, which is a group that we're part of that hires consultants to research rates and get involved in original jurisdiction proceedings to make their findings, and they came back and recommend that their rate increase should be denied. It's an unreasonable rate, so this resolution simply denies that rate based on those findings.
Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Motion passes.
A resolution.
11C. Go ahead.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Missouri City requesting Fort Bend County Commissioners Court to reappoint Russell C. Jones as Fort Bend County's municipal representative to the board directors of the Gulf Coast Water Authority.
Who is anybody?
And basically, he submitted a letter, and he just made the request that you all would make this ordinance to reappoint him.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the resolution? There's no motion. Is there a second? No motion, no second? It dies. Yeah. It was to reappoint.
Well, I got the letter, but I didn't quite understand why he was wanting us to get into Fort Bend County's business. Was he appointed by us before? I just think he's wanting a resolution of support.
Recommendation.
Yeah, I mean, and I spoke to some of the commissioners, and they were trying to explain it all to me, but it has nothing to do with Missouri City. So.
Okay. Well, we don't need to do anything else? Okay. 11D.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Missouri City, Texas, authorizing the mayor to execute the agreement between the City of Missouri City, Texas, and Newquest Properties, Inc., pertaining to the development of certain improvements to an approximately 43-acre tract of land located in the City of Missouri City, Texas.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Again, as you will recall, we have been working with Newquest Properties for over 7-8 months now. They're developing a over 250,000 square foot power center at the intersection of Fort Bend Toll Road and Highway 6. As a part of our discussions, we've put together an incentive package that has a number of components as outlined in the agenda item. Those include a Chapter 380 agreement that, as they develop, would be able to receive part of the sales tax back that they generate. The premise of our incentive program is a pay-as-you-go. We would not make any payments except for those things that the project generates. There is a maximum cap of $4 million in city incentives that would come from the city and the TERS. There's an additional $2.5 million that would come from the MMD. Presently, the property is vacant. It is not located in MMD number 2. It is in PID 2 and TERS 2. TERS 2 would contribute part of the property taxes back that are generated by the project to pay as you go. We would support the annexation into MMD 2. We would agree not to assess PID levy under the PID. And the agreement, we'd also extend the TERS and modify the TERS project plan and plan of finance. All these things are things that you've been briefed on previously. We have met with the TERS Board 2 last week, and they were in support of the project. They did not take action, but we briefed them on that we would be coming back following your support. So tonight's action is the first stage of that. That is the approval of the Chapter 380 agreement. It anticipates that the first project would be the Cinemark movie theater. For the project, the developer's attorney with ABHR is here if we have any other questions for them. But we would recommend your approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
So we can open up for discussion. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
I move to approve.
Any discussion or questions?
A second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay. Any questions, concerns?
No, I did want to say thank you, Joe, for it's been 7 months. Jesus.
Actually, it's been a little bit longer. Since
Okay.
this is August, we actually started in October, so it's more like 9 or 10, but who's counting?
But I just want to make sure that, in layman's terms, that the community knows that, they hear a number like $4 million, and that's a pretty significant amount, but that money is not coming from the city. It's coming from what this project generates when you say pay as you go. So it's not going to cost the city any money to provide these rebates, and that we're getting a percentage of sales taxes, from this deal as well.
True, but the true but-for test. But for this project, it would not generate the revenue from which it receives incentives. Additionally, there's a provision that if they cannot relocate retailers from inside the city limits to this location, because then we would have a net loss. So you're absolutely correct. But for the project, the incentive would not be created. We don't have the money to take out of our coffers to pay them. They generate the revenue to receive the incentive.
And I just think it's, in line with what our number one priority of development and redevelopment is. I'm excited about the project that we've been working on.
All righty. All those in favor? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion passes.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. We will do city council announcements and then go into executive session. Councilmember Emery?
No announcements.
Councilmember Boney?
Yes, I just want to express my excitement that I was able to, on yesterday, provide a proclamation of support to Mr. Bubba Thomas, who is a legendary music educator, world-class drummer, and a Missouri City resident, on their Jazz Education Foundation's anniversary on yesterday. It was a stellar event just to see the amount of work and effort that they put into educating these young people, man, from as young as 6 or 8 years old, and to graduation, and to seeing them go on to be flourishing musicians has just been exciting to see. So kudos to Mr. Bubba Thomas, and thank you so much for representing Missouri City in a great way.
Councilmember Pearson?
Well, first of all, I want to thank the city manager and staff for the presentations that they did tonight. I think that one of the things that's very important is keeping the community informed. There have been conversations about wanting a homestead exemption. I hope tonight you got some information that shed a little light on that. Street repair, sidewalk repair, those are all things that we have to factor in to the budget. I also might want to add that I'm pretty excited. One of the focuses that I've had in my district, which is District A, in many of my travels in my district, one of the concerns is what's going on Texas Parkway. So we got a number of things that are going on. So I hope that the citizens will see that we are making an effort to make a change where we're able to, in working with the landowners and working with developers, to get some things done. And last, I would really like the community to just take a moment and keep in your thoughts and prayers both the city of El Paso and the victims and their families and the community as a whole, and also in Dayton, the victims and their families and the communities at whole. Keep them in your thoughts and prayers. This was a very tragic, unfortunate incident that occurred in both of those cities, and so I just ask the community to keep those communities in your thoughts and prayers.
And I would also like to send out condolences to Curtis Williams, the second family. He was a pillar in our community. He passed away on last week, had a wonderful funeral, so just keep his family in prayer. Other than that, we will now go into executive session per section 551.071.
I left that out.
072?
That's correct, and add the number.
Oh, and 0712. Okay. Convene the regular council meeting and go back to 10A. We had a motion by Councilmember Emery to postpone, and we had a second, but that failed. So now we'll go back to 10A. Is there a motion to consider the ordinance for 10A? So there's no motion, no second. So it dies? Is that where we are? So 10A dies. And if there are no other business, we will adjourn the meeting.